Welcome back to the morning show. Now, armed with only a cassette tape, author Neil Sean's dream was to interview the elite, and his latest project is no exception, having penned a rare insight into one of the world's most iconic stars, Norma Jeane Mortenson, or more famously known as Marilyn Monroe.
Of the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Coupling her first movie contract with her new name, the blonde beauty is forever etched in history, starring in 29 films, grossing over $200 million and becoming, of course, one of the most recognisable sex symbols of all time. 50 years after her death, Neil has uncovered more about the starlet than ever before. And Neil Sean joins us live out of London now. Neil, lovely to have you with us. Tell us, what inspired you to begin this project in the first place?
Well, you know, I'd interviewed many people. I've been so lucky in this career, as we are, as you guys know. And I'd met people like Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, Rock Hudson, you know, when I was very young. I would interview them because I wanted to be a reporter. And I didn't realise, listening to these tapes back now, just how revealing they were. But the catalyst, really, was interviewing Ricky Martin, who is the son of the late Dean Martin. He came into the studio about 18 months ago. Sadly, we lost him this year. And what he really had was the fascinating insight into where Marilyn Monroe really was at age 36, just before, sadly, we lost her. Because her father, Dean, of course, was a co-star in a very final film, Something's Got to Give. And Marilyn would come to their house quite a few times for dinner and just to chat. So he gave me a bigger insight than anybody else, I think, really.
So what was the most interesting thing he told you about where she was at, where her head was at when she was 36, just before she died?
I think what was really interesting is that whatever you may think, and you've read about the Kennedys and all that sort of involvement, I think she was a realist, but in her mind, she did kind of believe at some point that she could have either married Jack or Bobby Kennedy. And this is because she believed she talked about herself apparently in the third person, you know, Marilyn Monroe would do this. So she kind of believed that why couldn't President Kennedy divorce Jackie and marry her and Marilyn become a first lady? Why not? Because she'd been everything else, world's ultimate sex symbol, married the world's most famous playwright, the world's most famous baseball player. Why not first lady? So there was no reasoning with her in some respects, but then, as Ricky said, she would have these moments of clarity where she'd say, look, I think I've just been used. And it's really quite sad in lots of respects.
The conspiracy theorists still have a field day, still going strong with exactly how Marilyn passed away. Did your research or any of your interviews lead to any new conclusions on that front?
Yeah, definitely. There is definitely something untoward. You know, whatever you may think, it just doesn't stack up. I think the real story there, again, is this. There's possibly one person left on this planet that knows really more about it than anybody else. And it's a lady called Pat Newcomb, who was Marilyn's sort of publicist and best friend, quote. And she, after Marilyn died, within weeks, got a job working for the Kennedys. Now, you know, she doesn't do interviews. She's never spoken to any media organisations. But for me, I think she holds the key to Marilyn's mindset and was to what really was going on. And why would you jump from working from Marilyn Monroe with this association to suddenly going to work for the Kennedys? It doesn't really stack up to me.
So a vintage portrait of Marilyn Monroe just sold for $25,000 earlier this week. Why do you think there is still so much intrigue and fascination about her?
You know, for me, I think, having met so many people, the book really tells it, not blow my own trumpet, but it tells a fascinating story, because when you're meeting people like, as I say, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, Billy Wilder, they suddenly wanted their association with her to be the paramount thing. So they were kind of trading off her, if you like, because she's become, possibly after maybe Rudolph Valentino, you know, Marilyn Monroe, the name itself today still sells. She's on towels, bedding, perfume, makeup, everything. That brand, that look will never go out of fashion. And I can't think of any other Hollywood star, maybe apart from Charlie Chaplin, where you would look at the image and go, I know who that is. So I think it's carried on, you know. Maybe we may feel the same way, in a very loose term, about Madonna in maybe 50 years' time, you know. Another iconic lady.
Don't know about that. Neil, is there more to this, or is it everything we need to know and will ever know about Marilyn Monroe? Is it on the table now, or is there more to come?
No, it isn't really, because, again, you know, interviewing people like Mickey Rooney and stuff, they all told me that she was a very complex character, and she sort of presented a personality to you. So if you wanted her to be this character, she was that character, you know what I mean? She sort of adapted herself. George Cukor, when I was listening to the tapes back from him, and I did these way back in the sort of late 70s when I was a child, he said something rather cruel, but possibly true. He said, listen, the mother was mad, and she had similar problems. She became whatever you wanted her to be. And I do kind of think Marilyn didn't know what she wanted to be, so projected what she thought you wanted and possibly got lost in her own search for happiness. So I think there's a lot more there, and I think many other people could tell you a different character trait about her. So
yeah,
I think she remains sad, you know, it's a sad thing, but I think she was also a brilliant actress, and don't forget, started her own production company when women didn't do that. So she was a clever girl, clever broad.
Yeah, and I think Joan Rivers said a lot smarter than people gave her credit for as well. Neil, it sounds like an absolutely fascinating read. Thank you so much for joining us. And for more, Neil's book is called I Met Marilyn, and there are details on our website.